Hello, my name is AC Fowlkes, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Welcome to this training on the 5 principles of de-escalation. What we're going to discuss is how we can help individuals when they become escalated without resulting in mechanical restraint. Here at Telecare, we care about providing compassionate, careful, thoughtful services. And we're going to discuss some best practices for that today. Welcome. Hello, welcome. My name is AC, and I am excited to be here today to go through this wonderful training with you all. As you might be aware, we have made a decision at Telecare to go mechanical restraint free, and we have been looking at what is the best way to go about doing that and making sure that everyone has the tools necessary to do that successfully. And one of the things that we have created at the Santa Cruz location are the 5 principles of de-escalation, or what we like to call Strive for 5. Now, by the end of this, we're going to be singing a tune together because I believe in jingles. And there's a jingle associated with Strive for 5, but we're not quite there yet. It's a little too soon, okay? But Strive for 5 really captures how we go about making sure that the people that are entrusted into our care feel safe and secure and affirmed and are able to be de-escalated in a way that is as supportive as possible. So we're looking for the approach that is most affirming, that is safest, and that causes people to know that they are in a safe place. And so this is our effort at making that happen, right? Because at Telecare, we believe very much in recovery, and we want to make sure that we are helping people to go through the process and the journey of recovery, right, in as seamless a way as possible. Couple of housekeeping things, so that I know that you are with me and that we are on the same page. Something that I like to do is, as we're going through this presentation, I'll ask you, does that make sense? All right. If it makes sense, I want you to clap one time. Does that make sense? Fantastic, okay. If it doesn't make sense, then you'll clap 2 times. And what that does for me is that allows me to listen for the second clap. And then I know I need to say it another way. There's no shame in clapping twice. Right? It's our way of checking in. Does that make sense? Fantastic. And quick learners, scholars, I love it. So let's get started. So the reduction of seclusion and restraints. All right, so I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey, and we're going to talk about what our process has been. And on this journey, we're going to cover a few things. Number 1, we're going to discuss the problem. We're going to take a quick journey through the numbers. We're going to discuss the method, which is the 5 principles of de-escalation that I've mentioned, and then we're going to discuss the outcome. The problem. So the problem that we had at Telecare Santa Cruz was we were utilizing mechanical restraints more than any of the other facilities within our organization. And we were using mechanical restraints really to an extent that we needed to take some time and really do some reflection and figure out what it is that we could do differently. And so we looked at our numbers and we looked at what was going on, and we had to determine or ascertain, why are we utilizing this intervention so much? Right? Is there anything else that we can do? Is there another approach, right, that we can employ? And what we found was that the problem was that our last resort, mechanical restraints, had in essence become our first resort. And so we were utilizing it right away instead of having it be the absolute last option. And so once we recognized that that was the problem, we had to figure out how we were going to bring our numbers down, right? Now, once you've become accustomed to something, it's a little difficult to let it go. And so this wasn't something that was necessarily easy for us, right? And we had to figure out, well, how do we make this process one that everyone can buy into, that everyone can see the value in, and one that we can do intentionally and quickly. Right? We don't want this to be something that drags on for years and years and years. We want to make a decision and walk in it. And so what we did is we took a look at the numbers. And I'm going to take you through the 5 principles of de-escalation, but before we get there, I want you to see the impact that us utilizing these tools had on us, okay? Now, if you look at our mechanical restraints, starting back in July of 2022, we were utilizing mechanical restraints quite a bit. And you'll see that with time and with us employing these new strategies and interventions that our numbers came down. And I'm pleased to say that they've stayed down. Actually, we have 2 co-located programs, and one of our programs, the Crisis Stabilization Program, has gone over 3 months without a mechanical restraint, and our psychiatric health facility has gone over 6 months without a mechanical restraint. And when you look at how frequently we were utilizing that intervention before, it's really a drastic change for us to not have reduced, but to have essentially eliminated at this point the use of mechanical restraints. But you can't look at that in a vacuum, right? We have to look at how this impacts other things. And so I wish I could say that it all just happened seamlessly, but that's just not how these types of things work. And what happened was, initially, when we stopped and we began to really lessen our use of mechanical restraints, what we found is that we had an uptick in physical restraints. Now, for those of you that don't know the difference, a mechanical restraint is when you are actually strapped down, right? Mechanically strapped down to a device. In our case, we have a mechanical restraint bed. A physical restraint is when we hold you, physically hold you, but we're not utilizing these external straps to hold you down. And so what we found was that as we moved away from mechanical restraints, we were having more physical holds. It was almost as if staff were thinking, okay, well, we can't strap them down, but we've got to do something, so we're going to hold them. Good news is that that was not something that lasted forever, and you'll see that towards the end here, it came down, and it remains low. It remains low now, but we did have that little blip on the radar. Similarly, we had that experience with emergency medications. And if you're not familiar with emergency medications, it is when you provide medication to help an individual to calm and soothe in real time. And so we had kind of a similar situation. It was almost as if we said, okay, we're not going to mechanically restrain, okay, we're going to physically restrain. Okay, wait. We don't have to hold them, we'll utilize emergency medications. So we're heading in the right direction, but we still weren't where we wanted to be. I am proud to say, though, that similar to what you see in the physical restraints, the emergency medication numbers came down as well, right? Because somewhere along the way we realized that we could do this through verbal de-escalation, that we could do this through meeting the needs of the patient in real time without it escalating to that point. And so we'll talk about how we did that, but it's a good visual to see what it looked like as we went through that process. So now, the method. Before we go into the method, is everyone with me? If you're with me, clap once. Are you with me? Fantastic, okay. Now we're gonna go into, this is the secret sauce, right? This is how we did it. And it wasn't one of those things where we sat down, right, and put on our scholar hats and came up with the secret sauce and employed it. That's not how this worked. Instead, we were figuring it out in real time. We were like, how do we do this? We know that this is the end goal. This is the expected end. How do we get there? And what we did is then, kind of in hindsight, we reflected on what are the things that we did and we did well, so that we can try to capture that, so that other people don't have to go through the process of figuring it out in real time of how do we get there. All right, so you have the benefit of our hindsight, right? And so hopefully that allows you to avoid some of the blips that you saw on the screen for us. And you'll be able to just maneuver right on in to a smoother landing. So the 5 principles of de-escalation, or Strive for 5, look a little like this. Number 1, calm over fear. It is imperative that we, right, as providers, that we are not matching the energy of the client if they are in distress. We have to be calm at all times, no matter what energy is coming our direction. So if you're angry, I don't match your anger with anger. If you're agitated, I don't match your agitation with more agitation, but instead, I remain calm. If someone's raising their voice with me, I'm actually going to speak softer, right? If someone is coming into my bubble, we all have that, our bubble. If someone's coming into my bubble, I'm going to slowly take a step back. I'm not going to match your energy if your energy is something that's destructive in the moment, right? And so the first thing we realized was that we had to be calm and measured and thoughtful in our responses. and we needed to do that no matter what was coming our way. Right? So that means, arms flailing, being called everything but a good human. You maintain your composure, and you present calmly and clearly to the individual. Does that make sense? Fantastic. So that's the first principle of de-escalation. The second principle of de-escalation is meeting the immediate need. And this is something that gets overlooked quite often, right? Because we have a tendency sometimes to overthink it, right? And we're trying to go all the way down into the deep depths of solving childhood trauma, and that's not what we need to be doing in this moment. Really, all they want is graham crackers, okay? Right? And so we have to be able to meet the immediate need. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you tired? Is it just too much stimulation? Do you need quiet? Right? Are people too close to you? Right? Meeting the immediate need is something that we can do that will instantly, almost automatically cause a person to de-escalate. Because when someone's acting out, it's often because they're trying to get their needs met. And in most instances, it's not the need itself that's a problem, it's the way that they're getting the need met that's a problem. Right? Most of the time, the need is absolutely okay. It's okay to be hungry or thirsty. It's okay to desire physical touch. It's okay to, all of those things are okay. It's about how do you go about getting that need met. And so what we have to do is we have to figure out, well, what is the immediate need? And what do you think is the best way to figure out what someone's immediate need is? This is not a trick question, but it is a question. What do you think is the best way to figure that out? Ask. Yes. What can I do for you? What do you need in this moment? What would make this situation better for you? And you'd be surprised how often it's the case that a person can articulate exactly what they need. I just need you to leave me alone. Oh, you could do that. Say less. I'm really just hungry. Why is it still another 2 hours until dinner? Fair enough. Let's get you something to eat. So we ask the question, and then we work to meet the immediate need. That way, they're not utilizing maladaptive ways to get that need met. And when we do that, we show them that there's a healthier way to do that, right? And we're able to say, now see, next time, you just come to me and say, hey, I really would like to watch the television. And then I can say, great, I'd like that for you. And we could turn on the television. Does that make sense? Do you need me to say it another way?
Yes, I have a question, and maybe you're going to address it in the presentation. That seems to me to be a huge leap for some teams to do. Because if the individual is already engaging in unsafe behaviors, or what we would call inappropriate behaviors, how do you ensure that a team can overlook that and ask, what is it that you need, as opposed to, we should punish you for these inappropriate behaviors?
Yes, and that comes back to the first point of calm over fear, or not matching energy. Right? So when our response is punitive, it's because we're matching energy, right? You are harming me in some way. I feel like I've been slighted in some way, and I want to respond to that. That's an energy match, which is absolutely normal, right? We do that in our exchanges with people. We match energy. There's this parroting that happens. There's this copying that happens. But we want to utilize that in a thoughtful way. So if energy match is going to happen, and it is, we want to be intentional to make sure that the energy match that's taking place is not me matching the client, but the client matching me. And that comes from a thoughtful place. And practice, it takes practice, right? It takes role play. It takes, a person is upset, they're animated, their movements are exaggerated, their voice is loud. What do you do in that moment, right? I'm still, I'm calm, I'm thoughtful in my response. And I'm not matching their energy, I'm giving them an opportunity to match mine. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Great question. Dignity over convenience. Now, you might look at this and wonder, what is the convenience that we might be discussing? And the convenience that I want you to really hone in on in this example is, if I mechanically restrain you, because that means that I don't have to engage with you for an extended period of time, right? Then I am prioritizing my convenience over the fact that this is something that could potentially strip you of your sense of dignity. And we can never, ever prioritize our convenience over the dignity of the people that we serve, right? And so when it comes to our selection of intervention, sometimes I have people say, well, then what happens? So let's say we are physically restraining someone, and then we let them go, and then they begin to act out again. What do we do? Well, we start over again. We go through the process of attempting to de-escalate. We start all the way back at 1, and we go up the steps as and only if necessary. And we've decided that there's this last step that we're just not going to go to, right? And so we have to do these other 4 steps very well and very consistently. Does that make sense? Right. So what I have to prioritize is not what's easiest for me. Sometimes this is not what's easiest for me, right? This might be an intervention that lasts longer than I really have time for in the moment, right? I've got notes due, it's time to round. I've got other stuff that I need to be doing in this moment, but none of that matters more than making sure that our clients are taken care of. And we're gonna prioritize that, their dignity, their self-respect, their sense of self-worth. We're gonna prioritize that over the convenience of employing an intervention that'll just make this situation go away quickly. And that's the third principle of de-escalation. So when we're looking at going through the steps, but not getting all the way to mechanical restraints, a lot of times people are wondering, well, what are those steps? What's the order we should go in? Now, obviously, I have to defer to the clinical judgment of the person that's there in real time, right? It's never the case that we can just give this hard and fast rule. We have to be able to, in the moment, make the best clinical decision. But just as kind of a general rule of thumb, the way that I approach these situations is we start with verbal de-escalation, because we never want to place our hands on anyone, right? The risk of injury, the risk of trauma, we never want to place our hands on someone. So if we can just talk and get someone to understand that they're okay and that it's a safe environment, that's what we want to do. Right? The next step, again, is not to place our hands on someone, but to offer a PO medication. Would a medication be helpful? Would medication help you to maybe feel more calm or help you to soothe in this moment? And to offer that, right? PO, meaning by mouth, meaning we're just gonna give you the medication, you take it, right? We're gonna push the reset button, we're gonna try again. The third step, right, if they were not desiring to take the medication PO and they really are beginning to be a threat to themselves or other people, we might have to consider, right, giving the medication by way of injection. Right? That may or may not actually include a physical restraint. Sometimes people will just stand there and they'll let you give them the injection. Right? That's our preference, because we don't want to put our hands on you. Right? If it's not the case that they're able or willing to allow the injection without us actually having to hold them, to secure them and make sure they're safe, then we'll go to that next step of holding them to make sure that they're safe. This is not punitive, and we're communicating all the while. We just want to keep your arm still, right? If you're flailing your arm, you can get hurt when they do the injection, so we're just going to hold your arm still so that you can get this medication, right? And that's what we're going to do. So we're clearly communicating that, and we're holding them just for the purposes of getting that medication into their system. Right? And then we have to give space and allowance for the medication to actually begin to do its job, while we are, at the same time, engaging in our verbal de-escalation skills. We're letting them know that they're safe. We're letting them know that we have their best interest in mind. We're letting them know that we don't want to harm them. We're letting them know that at any point in time, based on their behaviors, right, we can dial back, we can move back, we can change course. We just have to make sure that they're safe. And so that's my general rule of thumb, but in the moment, you're going to have to utilize your clinical judgment, because you might have to jump right to, right? Making sure that someone's not harming themselves, and that might require that you hold them. But if it's at all possible, we want to slowly make our way, right, through those steps. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Restoration of choice. Now, when we're talking about choice, we're talking about the client's choice, not our choice. Are we presenting them an opportunity to make decisions for themselves? Oftentimes, particularly if you're in an inpatient setting, you feel like all of your decisions are being made for you. And honestly, it's a fair assessment of the situation because, well, a lot of your decisions are being made for you. And so there's something really empowering about being given the opportunity to make a choice, right? And so this is when we place the ball in their court and we say to them, it's up to you. You decide what we do next. We don't want to harm you. We don't want to place our hands on you. We want for you to be okay. We want you to be safe. We want this to go well for all parties involved, right? So the choice is yours. You can decide what it is that we do next. And then you lay out very clearly what the options are so that they can make a choice. Now, what might that look like? For example, let's say I have someone who is posturing. Okay, that's fine. You can posture. I'm not going to take it to the next level by, approaching you and getting in your bubble and causing you to feel unsafe. But let's say this person then begins to go towards someone else as if they're going to cause harm to someone else. The restoration of choice would be for me to explain, and I've actually done this on numerous occasions. Now listen, I can't let you hurt anyone else. I can't do that. I can't let you hurt yourself. I can't let you hurt another client. I can't let you hurt a staff member. I can't do that. So you have a choice to make. You can either not engage in hurting someone else, in which case we stay over here, we stay out of your bubble, and you're welcome to scream, to posture, to be upset, to air your grievances, and we'll hold space for that. Or if you actually try to move forward and harm someone, we're going to have to physically intervene. We don't want to do that. We don't want to physically intervene. The choice is yours. You decide what happens next in this moment. You're in control of this moment. What will we be doing next? Will we just be holding space for you to vent? Or will we have to physically intervene? The restoration of choice is huge because oftentimes they feel as though they've had all their choices stripped. And I'm pleased to say that pretty much every time I've provided that choice to people, they've been like, I think I just want to stand over here and cuss you out, actually. And I'm like, that's fair. Let's do that, okay? Right? That's good. That's good. We like that. All right? And so let's provide them with that choice. And that feeds directly into the last principle of de-escalation, which is clarity of intent. Yes?
Just wanted to make a comment question
Sure.
about, it sounds sort of like a pre-planned or forced choice in a way.
Yes.
Right? So I sometimes hear from people, well, okay, I let them choose whatever they want to do, but it sounds
No.
like what you're describing is carefully.
Absolutely. So what we're going to give you the two options that are really the only two viable options in this moment. Because you harming someone else and us not intervening is not a viable option, so I'm not even going to put that on the table. You harming yourself and us not intervening is not a viable option, so I'm not going to place that on the table. Our only options are that you don't harm yourself or anyone else, or we intervene to make sure you don't harm yourself or anyone else. But at the end of this, the end result is you don't harm yourself or anyone else, right? But there's something about being given that choice that's so powerful, right? It's that whole, well, if I'm going to do this, I get to decide how I'm going to do it. And fair enough, you decide how you're going to do it. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we're not going to allow you to hurt yourself or anyone else. We can't let that happen. Thank you for pointing that out. And that speaks very well to the next point, which is clarity of intent. Particularly when you're dealing with individuals that have trauma histories, or when you're dealing with people that perhaps have psychotic disorders and they're experiencing paranoia, right? It's important that you clearly articulate what your intentions are. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we don't just come storming in, call a code, and all come barreling down on you, right? That's absolutely terrifying, right? It's clarity of intent. It is me explaining to you what is happening in this moment. All right, so we're here now. I can't let you harm yourself. We're going to have to come closer to you now because we're going to have to stop you from harming yourself. I've made it very, very clear what I'm doing and why. It's interesting because I've had times where clients have questioned why so many people, right? Because a code is called and everyone comes to support. Why so many people? Are you trying to hurt me? No, we have no desire to hurt you. No one wants to hurt you. And I actually take it a step farther. I actually will stop what I'm doing in that moment and turn around and ask the crowd of people. No one wants to, actually, hold on. Does anyone here want to hurt him? No, we have no desire to know him. Nobody wants to hurt him. Nobody wants to hurt you. You're just trying to come and get me. Oh, hold on. Does anyone actually want to put their hands on him? No, no one wants to put their hands. We don't want to put our hands on you. We just want to keep you safe. I don't believe you. Oh. Does everyone just want to keep him safe? Yeah, we just want to keep him safe. Okay. So now there's two ways that we can do that, right? And that takes us back to that forced choice. The way that we want to do it is just for you to make the decision not to harm yourself. That's what we want. And we'll all just stand over here and we'll know that we're keeping you safe from a distance. We're doing our job, you're doing your job, we're all doing our job. Right? That's the choice that we hope that you make, but it's your choice. And there's something about the coupling of being provided a choice with it being very clear what your intentions are. That's a very powerful thing. At the end, I just want you to be safe. That's it. Nobody wants to hurt you. Does that make sense? Fantastic. So the outcome. So we've discussed the numbers. You saw the de-escalation, and it's been powerful. And even looking at the months beyond that, like I said, we've gone several months now without the use of mechanical restraint. Our physical restraints and the like have reduced tremendously. We are utilizing these 5 principles of de-escalation. But it's interesting because one of the things that I can say is we're a pretty competitive bunch. And so we decided to make kind of a friendly rivalry out of this, right? Like if you're going to have a rivalry, it should be friendly, right? Okay. And it should be to a good end. And so we decided we were going to make a friendly rivalry out of this. And we actually have this on our wall now where we track on a daily basis. And the numbers are much higher, I'm really pleased to say, than what you see here. But where we track on a daily basis how long we've gone without mechanical restraints. And it's funny because, again, we're a competitive bunch. We have this big thermometer on the wall, and we track where we are. Right? One side is a rocket, if you can see that. The other side is Richard Simmons, because we all want to be Richard Simmons just a little bit. And so you see Richard Simmons making his way and the rocket making its way. But we couldn't stop there. So what happens? What happens when you're winning? Right? So what does this mean? Well, you get a trophy. And so right now I'm pleased to say that our psychiatric health facility has gone over 6 months without a mechanical restraint. They currently have the trophy and they're holding on to it. They're like, yeah, it's ours, because we're a competitive bunch. But it is a way for us to capture the essence of the importance of this gesture, but also it's a way for us to celebrate. To celebrate a job well done. And so here's a picture. This is the first time that the trophy was awarded. You'll see everyone with their 5 fingers up for the 5 principles of de-escalation. All right, we're striving for 5. Don't think you're getting out of singing the tune, it's coming, all right? And the winner in this case was the crisis stabilization program, but now our psychiatric health facility is doing a fantastic job and is the holder of the trophy. And so this is something that you might choose to implement at your program. If you have a competitive bunch like we do, we tend to compete. We compete in our goodness. We're gonna see who can be the best at this goodness. So we compete at our goodness. And we have created a jingle that I would be remiss if I did not teach you the jingle. All right, starts with the thumb, right? Strive for five. Oh my God. All right, okay, wait, listen, that was too perfect. Okay, we gotta try it one more time. All right. And strive for five. Woo! Thank you so much for participating in today's training. I am excited to see what you're going to do with this information. And remember, strive for five.